choose the Beautiful Features cassette, Grandma.
You told us all about the art and culture, which you called
The Shrine's Beautiful Features. We'll start at the reception center, and with the most beautiful feature, the basilica.
Everyone in Cap de la Madeleine had dreamt of a basilica since 1911. But the first plans date back to 1917. They were designed by Aristide Beaugrand-Champagne.
He was an architect and landscaper, and his plans, well, they no longer exist. You won't be able to include all that in your scrapbook, Grandma.
The basilica was built between 1955 and 1964. Its architect was Adrien Dufresne.
The basilica is representative of Dom Belot's influence. He was a French monk and architect who brought architecture into modernity.
The fundraising campaign began in 1937. It would take 18 years to raise the money.
But before breaking ground in 1955, the Oblate Monastery had to be moved 79 meters towards the north, or 260 feet, Grandma. The cost of moving the building was equivalent to half the cost of demolishing it and rebuilding it.
They moved the structure using logs, which took 3 days. While staff were living inside it day and night, going about their business.
It's even said that the move was done so slowly and gently that the oblate could sleep without feeling anything. Once the move was completed, the parish sold the logs to help pay for such a maneuver.
So, work started in 1955 when Monsignor Georges-Léon Pelletier broke ground with a shovel. And 8 years later, in 1963, the first Mass was celebrated on May 19th.
But the official opening took place on August 14, 1964. With the consecration of the basilica and its altar, besides, the basilica bears the title of minor basilica.
All the major basilicas are in Rome, but there are 10 minor ones in Quebec. It's the 6th one to have been given that title since 1874.
The basilica is octagonal, and its dome is pyramidal. Pyramidal. The basilica is octagonal. Its dome is pyramidal, and it's crowned with a skylight and a cross. But the structure is 3 feet shorter than the Trois-Rivières Cathedral because nothing can be taller than a cathedral in the same city.
The Basilica's carillon has 5 bells. 3 of them date back to 1933, and they come from the St. Vincent de Paul Church in Quebec City. They were installed in the Basilica in 1988. The 2 last ones were installed a year later.
It's worth knowing that each bell has a name, a note, and a weight. The first one is called Jesus. It weighs 2,150 pounds and is tuned to F.
The second one is called Mary. It weighs 1,527 pounds and is tuned to G.
My favorite is the third one. Its name is Joseph, and it weighs 1,180 pounds, and it's tuned to A.
The next to last one is named after Our Lady of the Cape. It weighs 3,300 pounds. It's the heaviest one, and it's tuned to D.
The smallest and last bell, the lightest one, is called Father Frederick. It weighs 840 pounds, and it's tuned to B flat.
There's always something chiming in the church. In our basilica, 5 bells do so.
Grandma, you often drew attention to the statue of Our Lady on the facade of the basilica.
But did you know that it's 24 feet tall and that it was sculpted in 1961? The artist was Paul Gongras,
who was nicknamed the Blessed Virgin's artist. He worked for a company located near Cap de la Madeleine, the Martineau and Deschambault Quarry in Saint-Marc-des-Carrières.
He made a career out of working in quarries.
Here's a homegrown fact. The statue's crown bears the coat of arms of all Canadian provinces to highlight the national character of the site.
And the statue of an angel is on either side. One represents the Archangel Gabriel, who announced the birth of Jesus to Mary,
while the other represents Archangel Raphael, considered to be the guardian angel of humanity. Raphael is the divine physician, the archangel of health and healing, and the angel of abundance and creativity, which are elements of the shrine's mission.
He's also the patron saint of travelers, who always flock to the shrine in great numbers.
And now, Grandma, we'll gently step into the basilica. You can turn up the sound if you can't hear as well, because we're going to whisper a little to avoid disturbing people.
Just above the entrance is the majestic Casavant organ, which was inaugurated on July 4th, 1965.
It was built by the Casavant brothers, who were world-renowned for being among the top organ builders. The Quebec company has built nearly 4,000 instruments that are located all over the world: Australia, Mexico, Japan, and throughout North America.
It's one of the 10 largest organs in the world.
In fact, it's one of the 5 largest ones.
In fact, it depends on the number of pipes or keys.
Ah, yes, that's true. Well, anyway, here's the precise statistic. It has 5,425 pipes and 75 stops.
And the 5,425 pipes are in the shape of a maple leaf.
Which reminds us that, yes, we are in Canada. And according to the bishops, this is a national pilgrimage site.
You never told us that, Grandma. But we noticed that no matter where you are in the basilica and no matter where you look,
there are no columns, nothing to block your view.
You can see everything. From what we can observe, there are the 6 lateral transepts, each of which has stained glass windows that tell a little story.
But we'll talk a little more about that in the stained glass windows cassette.
But just to refresh your memory, the stained glass windows were installed by Jan Tillmans between 1957 and 1965, although they were made in his country, the Netherlands.
6 sets of stained glass windows that tell 6 stories about the Lord, about Mary, about characters from the Old Testament and the New Testament, about the life of the church, the history of Canada, and about the shrine of Our Lady of the Cape.
One journalist noted that they're like those in medieval cathedrals. The stained glass windows are a catechism in images.
Between 150,000 and 200,000 glass fragments were used to create the richly colored mosaics, whose colors are reminiscent of Quebec's autumns.
If you look towards the altar to the left, you can see the statue of Our Lady of the Cape.
It's made of marble and was blessed in 1964. Since we'll come back to them on the stained glass windows cassette, we'll now go down to the basement.
This area has been mostly used for the arts, music, singing, culture, since the Second Vatican Council, which brought about a liturgical renewal where creativity and participation were encouraged.
I'll even quote Vatican II. That the art of our time and that of all peoples and all regions should be freely exercised in our church, provided that it serves the structures and sacred rites with the respect and honor that are owed to them.
Among the creative exploits, rhythmic masses began in the spring of 1968 in the basilica's basement, which is evidence of creativity, adaptation, and fidelity. Speaking
of songs, the Maîtrise Notre-Dame-du-Cap, a choir created for the Basilica inaugural Mass on August 15, 1964.
However, the choir actually began in the small shrine on December 8, 1963. Oblate Marcel Chenier oversaw the choir, and Our Lady of the Cape's choir became widely known outside the region by giving concerts in New England and Ontario.
In 1983, with participation from the Cap de la Madeleine School Board, the choir created Les Petits Chanteurs, or the Little Singers, to offer young boys musical education on a daily basis.
Singing lessons, musical theory, an introduction to the classical repertoire, as well as musical instrument lessons.
The choir school had 2 very distinct functions. First, a liturgical role by singing at religious ceremonies, and a second cultural role through concerts featuring both the sacred repertory and secular music.
Music representing different eras and different styles.
In 1988, the choir ceased being formally linked with the shrine to focus more on concerts,
featuring great works from the choral repertory, as well as Canadian music and popular performances.
However, it has maintained its liturgical function, serving parishioners in the greater Trois-Rivières area, as well as Our Lady of the Cape Basilica.
In September 1990, the church choir school finally began accepting young girls. It has become an innovator in the field and diversified the scope of its activities by creating a choir with an equal number of boys and girls.
Today, the Little Singers Church Choir continues to operate at the Jacques Hitu School in Cap de la Madeleine. Don't forget that I once belonged to it.
A little song for Grandma?
La la la.
You could have stopped by the RM studio.
That's true. The shrine also has a studio, the RM studio, which stands for Radio Mary. I remember that Grandma used to listen to the broadcast of rosaries on local radio.
And it became a studio where songs and religious music are recorded.
There was even a team of directors who marketed slideshows throughout Quebec regarding the post-conciliar catechism and point of view.
Some radio programs were designed and produced at the RM studio and then broadcast throughout Quebec.
Grandma will let you hum songs that you recall while we go outside and walk over to the small paths around the pond.
We promise not to cross it without you.